President Muhammadu Buhari on the 22nd of May 2023 commissioned the Dangote Petroleum Refinery in Ibeju, Lekki, Lagos. The refinery, with a capacity of 650,000 barrels of crude oil per day, when operated, is expected to meet Nigeria's domestic demand for petroleum products and help Nigeria to save the much-needed foreign exchange currently spent on the importation of such products. However, there are questions as to why President Muhammadu Buhari could not build a single refinery after his promises before assuming office in 2015, and why, as a Minister of Petroleum, he could not make a landmark in the petroleum industry. Public Affairs Analyst Matthew Loko is in the studio with me. This is Political Matters, and I'm Michael Adekunle. In 2015, President Muhammadu Buhari promised to build us, even if it's one, because he said he was going to build like 3 or 4 or so refineries. But we expected him to build even if it is one. But up till now, we've not seen any light concerning that. And here is an individual. Let's forget about the fact that Aliko Dangote is the richest black man in Africa. Let's forget about that Dangote is a billionaire, is this, that. But the most important thing here is an individual funded this and executed it. At the end of the day, finalized it. We have a whole lot of dignitaries, arrays of guests at that Lekki Epe Dangote refinery. The Ooni of Ife was there. We have the president of Congo. We have the president of Ghana, and diverse personalities, who came to commission that project. Who came for the commission of that project, if I may say. Now, what would you say about this? And the president that promised to build us a refinery, what would you say concerning? What's your own submission towards it?
To be quite honest with you, Mr. President failed us in that regard. We have a man who came in with so much goodwill, and Nigerians were expecting development, positive development in oil and gas industry. I think the only area we may say he achieved success in the oil and gas is the ability to sign the Petroleum Industry Bill into law, which is now in the Petroleum Industry Act. Because if you look at oil and gas in Nigeria and the challenges it has been facing, and the amount of money that has been used to carry about turnaround maintenance of the refinery between 2015 and date, and if you just suppose that with the situation that the refineries are not refining, you're going to ask question, where's the money? Because as we speak, the federal government through NNPC have spent 1.3 trillion between 2015 and date to carry about turnaround maintenance of our 4 refineries, and as we speak, they are not refining. I have a government, a president who went to commission such projects. So for me, I think with due respect, Mr. President didn't perform well in that oil and gas sector. But again, I take note of the slogan that is common with government, that government have no business in business. But the irony of it all is, you now find the same government going to Dangote Refinery to acquire 20% equity. And they will tell you that government have no business in government.
Now, if you say, if you are reacting to this, what would you say about the central bank, governor, or the CBN, input or impact in that project? Because Emefiele, specifically stated it yesterday that the loan, given to Dangote, to fund that project, to execute it, that Dangote has returned 70% of the loan.
No, you don't take away the fact that CBN may have played pivotal role in helping Dangote Group to secure loans with which we now saw that project being a success. And such level of loan, you should be looking at a consortium of banks to finance it. It's not going to be a single bank. So in assessing forests to even import most of those machineries, CBN would have played a significant role. You don't take away that fact. And again, that facility comes with so much benefit. If you are looking at the area of petrochemical, in 2022 alone, Nigeria spent about $26 billion to import petrochemicals. So if you now have a facility from where those petrochemicals can be produced, definitely you are not going to be spending that forest going to outside the country to get it. So it's a work of development. And if you look at another area that has to do with our OPEC quota, you know, OPEC manages the quantity of barrel of crude you produce, or liter of the barrel of crude you produce as a country. But again, if you look at the benefit that comes with this refinery, it is not if you are looking at OPEC quota, if for instance OPEC give us 2.2 million barrels to produce a day, this refinery is going to give us ability to produce beyond OPEC quota, because OPEC is not compelling you to limit your production to the quota you are given in terms of local refining. So if this refinery, the way it is, that has the capacity to refine 650,000 barrels a day, it means if the refinery is looking at getting 300,000 barrels from Nigerian crude, that will be outside OPEC quota, and by so doing, you are creating more jobs, you are galvanizing activity in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, thereby improving on the GDP in the oil and gas. So it has so much value chain. Is it the 12,000 megawatt electricity that will be generated through the refinery? There are so many areas to tap into. We can look up to see it is beneficial to our economy. Yeah. But again, I think for people who may be thinking that this may be an end to importation of refined products into the country, I think they may need to have a rethink.
That was the question I was about.
Because the reason is not far-fetched. It is understandable that about 40% of refined products will be exported from that facility. And from the record, it showed that that refinery is going to be producing about 53 million liters of gasoline, premium motor spirit, the one that is popularly called fuel. Then it has the capacity to produce 4 million diesel and 4 million liters of diesel and 2 million liters of aviation jet fuel. So what I'm trying to say in essence is, going by the record from NNPC, that will consume average of 64 million liters of PMS a day. So even if we were to utilize the whole 53 million being produced, it means we'll still be looking for additional 50 million liters of PMS. Because if you remove 53 million from 68 million, you're having 15 million. So, and couple the fact that they are going to export 40% of what is going to be refined, it means significantly we are still going to depend on importation to satisfy our local consumption.
Now, this is going to generate foreign exchange, and also going to employ Nigerian youths, youths that are idle in the country. Don't you think this is a sign of relief for the incoming administration and a hope for Nigerians that better days are still coming?
It would have been a relief if Nigerians would be on the same page with experts in the industry to understand the workability of the industry. But the reason it may not be a relief is because definitely with this, I think the federal government will be thinking of total removal of subsidy. And if you do that, it is irrespective of whether you are producing here, the price will be more than what we are buying currently. Because don't forget that if you are looking at cost of production of crude is the same thing globally. But if you capture the cost of bringing it here, transportation, it increases. But the point I'm trying to make is, even if you remove subsidy and you want Nigerians to pay the actual cost of production, definitely it will be more than the current pump price in Nigerian markets. Now, and when that happens, Nigerians are not ready to accept the reality that this is the current, that this is the actual cost of production vis-a-vis the producer putting his own profit and maybe all the value chain in terms of people who lift it from the depot, from the refinery to tank farm, from tank farm to filling stations have to capture their own profit. Nigerians may not be willing to accept that. The only thing Nigerians are ready to accept is we are buying SY amount of money as per liter and want it sustained. So anything that increases the amount of money that is being spent on the liter of PMS, Nigerians will complain.
Now, do you think this would, curb the fuel crisis that we've always experienced in Nigeria? Crises like inflation, that I'm talking about fuel hike, and fuel scarcity in the country. Now, taking a look at what went down last year's November all through February, March, or thereabout, Nigerians were in serious hardship. Fuel scarcity, fuel hike. Would this go a long way in curbing that?
No, definitely to a large extent. As long as that refinery is running in full capacity, it have a way of helping to address the incessant fuel crisis in Nigeria. But again, if we are not getting all we need from that refinery, it means largely we are still going to depend on importation for our local consumption. I've said it here that according to the Group Managing Director of NNPC, Milekari, that will consume average of 64 million litres of PMS. If that is true, it's going to show that if Dangote Refinery is producing 53 million litres a day, and they are going to export 40% of that quantity, it means we are still going to import more than half of what we need to consume. But I quite had the perception that there is sharp practices in terms of subsidy regime. So that leaves us with the argument that the amount of, or rather the quantity of PMS the authorities have been telling us that will consume may not be correct. Okay. But even at that, I don't think if Dangote is to export 40% of what he refines, that the remaining will be able to satisfy our daily local consumption.
Okay. Now let's quickly go check on the reactions of diverse dignitaries that were present at the occasion yesterday. I'm talking about the commissioning of the laudable project executed and embarked on by Aliko Dangote. Now we have the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, saying this. Now let's quickly look at what Peter Obi is saying here. I have always argued for greater private sector participation in the economy as exemplified by the Dangote Group. I believe the Dangote Refinery would be very beneficial to the nation's economy. Now moving down to Godwin Emefiele, the central bank of the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, is saying something here. The project will generate thousands of direct jobs and millions of indirect jobs with over 135,000 permanent jobs. On to the next one, the president himself, Muhammadu Buhari, commissioned the project yesterday, and Buhari is saying something as well. The refinery is a milestone for the Nigerian economy and a game changer for the downstream petroleum market in the African continent. Let's take just one from another president which is outside the country. President of Ghana, Akufo-Addo, was Akufo-Addo saying concerning the laudable project embarked on by Aliko Dangote. The refinery would not only strengthen the Nigerian economy, but that of West Africa and the entire continent by extension. Now, these are dignitaries that were present at the occasion, giving kudos to Aliko Dangote and the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, it's questionable that a president of a country who appointed himself as the minister of petroleum couldn't, for 8 years of his service in government, couldn't build one refinery. How would you react to that, Matthew?
Well, I think it's a monumental failure. It's a monumental failure because the speed with which Mr. President assumed the substantive ministry the Minister of Petroleum Resources shows that he has interest in the oil and gas. And if a quick check will tell you that it's even more easier if you want to go by modular refineries. And as a government that have the liberty and access to crude, building a refinery would have been a challenge because you have ready raw material, I mean the crude. Because there is apprehension and fear, which is genuine anyway, about individuals who take advantage of the licensing being provided by federal government to build modular refineries, that after building you may not have access to crude. But as a government and you build refineries, government have ready crude because all the oil that is being explored, manned by all the oil majors in Nigeria, I'm talking about ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell, federal government across board take 60%. That's what we said to earn foreign exchange. So you can still leverage on part of it to give to the refineries locally to refine. But again, just like I said earlier on, that if you have a refinery here, it may not need to tap into your open quota. You have liberty to explore more to get to your local refineries to refine. So it is even more advantageous when you are refining. It will create more jobs, just like I said, and it will create job or more job for people. So for me, I think Mr. President failed in that regard. Because one, you succeeded in spending more money to carry about turnaround maintenance of the refineries that runs into trillions of naira. And at the end of the day, at the end of your administration, none of the refinery is refining. So for me, it's a monumental failure.
And what lessons do you think the incoming administration should learn from this? Of course, May 29, Tinubu will assume office. The president of the country, Muhammadu Buhari, will be going out at same day or date. What lessons do you want the incoming administration to learn? And do you think the incoming administration, that will be led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will be capable of, giving us that giant stride project Aliko Dangote has given to Nigerians?
I don't see any government currently, whether the outgoing government or the incoming administration, having the capacity and the willpower to embark on such projects. That's one. Then secondly, about the advice I will give to the incoming administration, I think it's clear that if you give people responsibility and there's no result, you should query people. And where they are not able to defend their failure, people should be fired as a way of deterring people, other people from doing the right thing. Because in any environment, any society, any organization, that there is no consequence for failure, abnormality becomes a norm. So in order to check such, there is need to always query people who are given responsibility, and where they are not able to meet up with targets. I think again there should be need to set target for people when the incoming administration comes aboard and they give appointment. They need to set targets where they are not able to meet. When you do appraisal, you discover that they are not able to meet targets, they need to sanction people. And when it is obvious that there is misappropriation of funds in terms of people breaching the trust invested in them by giving them money to spend, I think the incoming administration should have the willpower to ensure that they prosecute such people to act as a deterrent to others.
Sorry, before we go, what do you think would be going through the president's mind yesterday, when he saw the project and when it was commissioned?
I think you may,
as a petroleum
if I may infer,
yeah.
extrapolate what will be running through his mind, I think he'll be looking at himself as somebody who failed.
Wow.
Because what you could not do with all the enormous resources at your disposal, you don't see an individual doing it. Because go and look at the borrowing federal government have done through ways and means. That window created by the Constitution through which federal government can borrow from CBN to finance budget deficit. As at the last count, we are meant to understand that federal government have borrowed up to 22.something trillion. So that is quite a huge amount.
Which is a challenge the incoming.
So if you have channeled that, if you have taken that money, channeled it into construction, building of modular refineries, I'm telling you by now, we would have gotten one refinery in each of the states. I mean, modular refineries that cost little amount of money to build. I'm talking about a modular refinery that costs about $100 million US, and it can refine about 100,000 barrels of crude a day. So they could have been able to replicate that in almost all the states, and the issue of fuel scarcity and importing refined product would have been a thing of the past.
Maybe he doesn't have good advisor, or what do you think?
I think one thing is to have advisors, another thing is to take advice.
One thing is to have good advisor.
Another thing is to take advice.
All right, I need to appreciate your appearance on the show today, and I do hope you come again next time when we invite you. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
All right, we've been speaking with public affairs analyst Matthew Oluku, very, very great intellectual there. All right, on today's edition of this program, we say goodbye to you. Join us next time on the same platform. Michael Adikulu, Miss Miley. Bye, everyone.